Monsieur le Président, le monde aujourd'hui fait face à une situation exceptionnelle, des moments inédits. Et on dirait même que Covid-19 a presque anéanti le monde. Pour la première fois, Monsieur le Président, l'humanité se sent confrontée d'un ennemi invisible, un ennemi global, et qui n'a aucun souci de caste, de race, de statut ou de classe. Covid-19 a montré sa capacité de tenir le monde en haleine, en otage. Et c'est clair qu'aujourd'hui, nous sommes tous confrontés à un nouveau monde. Et tout d'un coup, de nouvelles terminologies nous deviennent familières. On parle de New Normalcy. On parle de la distanciation sociale. On parle de trying and testing times. Monsieur le Président, nous sommes à un tournant. La réalité, c'est que la pandémie nous force à revoir nos façons de faire, à revoir nos habitudes. Et cela est vrai pour tout le monde. Je reprendrai tout à l'heure, au cours de mon intervention, les points soulevés par l'honorable Navarre-Marie. Mais c'est vrai que nous sommes en confinement et que dans des temps pareils, il y a bien des choses que nous ne pouvons faire à la vitesse que nous le souhaitions. Mais il faut dire que les crises ont toujours des choses en commun. Crises, Mr. Speaker, sir, have a quality about them, that of compelling us to change and adopt new approaches to dealing with issues. The bills before the House are precisely evidence pointing to that direction. We all understand that the two bills are inextricably connected. En ce qui s'agit du Quarantine Bill, je prendrai quelques minutes à parler de quelques points du Quarantine Bill, mais je crois, Monsieur le Président, que c'est clair. Nous le savons, Monsieur le Président, la quarantaine fait peur. Les gens ont peur de la ségrégation. Les gens ont peur de l'isolation. Et qu'est-ce qui les fait peur? Peut-être pas vraiment la durée du confinement, mais probablement parce que la personne en question craint qu'elle est elle-même infectée ou qu'elle est peut-être porteur ou vecteur possible. Et je pense, Monsieur le Président, que cette appréhension est surtout parce qu'ils ne comprennent pas vraiment la raison et le concept de la quarantaine. Et alors, c'est très important aujourd'hui de moderniser l'ancien Quarantine Bill et de venir avec une législation qui nous permettra de mieux cerner la situation. Mr. Speaker, we are thinking about the welfare of the nation. And recent cases have shown the heavy price paid by countries for being relatively lax about the imposed rigors of confinement and self-confinement. The resurgence, the second wave of Covid-19 has been an inevitable and expected outcome of such relaxation. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the time has come for this modern quarantine bill, and I'll talk about two aspects of the bill. We can now realize that with the new COVID virus, that the way the contamination takes place varies. And we have also learned that the virus stays active for hours or to days on certain surfaces, such as plastic and metal. So it has become important to review and think about ways in which diseases spread, the modes of transmission, whether it is airborne, waterborne, or by droplet transmission. Hence, the review of the definition of communicable disease itself has become important. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, we talk about ethical issues. People are worrying about how people can be taken straight away to quarantine centers. But it is important for us to realize that in pandemic-driven conditions, we have to systematically harp on the personal responsibility of one and all and ensuring the general good for the larger number during the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe we are all seeing the results of this at this particular juncture in our fight against this invisible enemy. And I must insist that the flattening of the epidemic curve could not be left to personal responsibility of each and every individual. Let it be stressed that the confinement allowed for better surveillance and control of the spread of the disease, and that, Mr. Speaker, actually led to the decrease in the number of reported positive cases. Monsieur le Président, the duty, the obligation to provide information and the duty to disclose diseases is extremely important. And there are two sides to this. On the one hand, we have to guard against the propagation of false news and fake information, hence the importance to give the right information. And also to ensure that there are sanctions for people who diffuse false information. Mr. Speaker, sir, Section 9 and 10 of the bill emphasizes the responsibility of every individual to disclose the possibility of having been infected or exposed to the disease. We are all aware that one of the major challenges which the health sector faced in the midst of the pandemic has been the non-disclosure of the exposure of some persons. It hampers the contact tracing and it has severe repercussions, medical repercussions, delayed diagnosis and treatment, and also it has an impact on the spread of the virus. Monsieur le Président, we have to drive it home that it is the moral, medical, legal responsibility of each and everyone to speak the truth, to give the real, genuine information, and I reiterate that such openness, such trust that will lead to preemptive actions in safeguarding the large interest of the community. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me now come to the COVID-19 miscellaneous provision bill. To save time, Mr. Speaker, sir, I will intervene mostly on the education sector. According to UNESCO, the Institute for Statistics, nationwide school closures has taken place in 192 countries, impacting on some 91.4% of the world's students. That is a record number of more than 1.5 billion children and youth and some 63 million teachers at the latest count. In the light of the unexpectedness with which the pandemic had struck us, it is foolhardy to say that proactive measures could have been taken. However, once the threat started becoming more evident, many countries started seeking ways and means to stem the tide. Mr. Speaker, sir, COVID-19 is in fact a matter of public health. Mitigating its impact, we all know, will depend primarily on actions of scientists and pharmaceutical manufacturers in discovering the vaccine or drugs for treatment of COVID-19 infection. In the meantime, countries across the world have found means to slow down the spread of the disease, and a number of measures were taken. Border closures, school closures, quarantining people, contact tracing, and lockdown. We too in Mauritius, Mr. Speaker, sir, have been strongly proactive. The Prime Minister, Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnnath, in his wisdom, came up promptly with far-reaching measures, starting from the closure of our frontiers at a very early stage. Subsequently, with the detection of the first infected case, the immediate closure of educational institutions was decided upon. There was undoubtedly the best way to keep our learners, our children and youth, safe and secure. Mr. Speaker, sir, in such times, strong decision-making is important. And our Prime Minister, his strong leadership has allowed us to take the right measures in a timely manner. But I must also add that along with this strong leadership, there was a need for responsible citizenship. The followership also should be strong. And I must say that the Mauritian population at large has been a very responsible population. They have been receptive, they have been responsive, and they have acted in a disciplined manner. And this responsible citizenship has also helped us a lot. I must seize the occasion also, Mr. Speaker, sir, to place on record the wonderful work carried out by the high-level committee on the COVID infection, and also the Ministry of Health, and all the people, the frontliners at the level of the Ministry of Health, the nurses, the doctors, and all those who've been working, the people, the personnel in the hospitals working during the infection. I must say that all the frontliners, may they be in the hospitals or the police officers, they have all done a wonderful job. And I seize the opportunity to thank them for that. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I've just said, along with effective decision-making, we require responsible citizenship. While some people today are saying that we did things without consulting or without getting the tablets beforehand, we need to see how we worked out the plan. We didn't sit and just came up with decisions like that. There has been discussions with UNESCO. We have been having meetings of all ministers of education of the African Union. We've been doing the same with the confinement ministers. And we've been working and deciding on things in a very systematic manner. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must state at the very outset that my ministry had recognized a need to do a deep dive into the ramifications of the school closure issue. We were guided in that by some basic questions. The first one was, how do we ensure educational continuity for learners when regular in-class instruction is suspended? The other questions pertain to the modalities to be kept in view prior and subsequent to resumption of schools, once the curve of the pandemic would have flattened. Thus, of vital importance, Mr. Speaker, were the issues of the timing, when to open schools, the preconditions for reopening, and the processes for the reopening, including whether to have a full, partial, or differentiated reopening. Mr. Speaker, sir, the education response within the government's COVID-19 strategy is in fact upfront answer to these fundamental questions. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to briefly reflect the lines of our thinking that have led to the policies my ministry has implemented in this unprecedented situation. For the situation is unprecedented. COVID-19 has generated the greatest disruption in the provision of educational opportunities in our history. It was therefore imperative for us to seek to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. We had accordingly put up a multi-stakeholder task force to work out our response. Thus, the purpose behind our endeavor could not have been clearer. We had to ensure education continuity during the period of school closure and even beyond, and this we did by reflecting on the twin questions of why and how. Why? The reasons are manifold. Let me just take some significant ones. Our primary aim, as stated earlier, was to ensure the health and safety of our learners. But there were additional considerations to keep in view. The need to ensure continuity in learning, and hence preventing learning losses, the recovery of learning time, the reprioritizing of curricular goals, and certainly, not the least, ensuring equity. Closing schools and not giving our learners alternative means of catching up on their studies, however basic and non-sophisticated the means, had never been an option. Depriving them of an educational opportunities is tantamount to flouting their right to education, a fundamental human right on its own. Mr. Speaker, sir, we must respect this right, and the best way of doing it is by ensuring that there is continuity in education. Not guaranteeing this continuity would result in our learners facing a severe risk of educational setback. The implication would be dire. It would mean a lot of catching up that would have to be done. Experience shows that when learners realize their inability to keep up with lessons, their frustration level increases, and that in turn further impacts on their performance. In fact, one prevailing international fear is that of le décrochage scolaire, of learners dropping out and never returning to school once the crisis is over. This is perhaps not the case in Mauritius, but that risk has to be nipped in the bud. That was our response to the question, why? And now the how part. The context has been such that we made ours what is also the international norm today, the combined use of distance education and online learning, both synchronous and asynchronous. Hence, we have secured 4 channels from the NBC, while the MIE, the MGI, the Open Universities have contributed their professional and technical expertise in mounting a series of customized education programs. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must here also place on record the contribution of many highly dedicated educators, both from the state and private sectors, who despite the lockdown gave so much of their time to the mounting and delivery of programs. In their own way, they have been frontliners as well, and they need to be recognized. Unfortunately, this voluntary coming forward response has not been secured from all quarters. In some cases, there has been an unwillingness and a stubborn reluctance to see this as an emergency that requires all hands at the deck. The question has been and remains this: can we allow our learners to be cut off physically from long spells of time from education process? The answer is obvious. It is the duty of the state to ensure continuity in learning and teaching and learning by all means available, especially including the digital ones. Hence, the bill makes a case for reinforcement of Section 36 of the Education Act through the addition of a new subsection that empowers the ministry, and I quote, to order any educational institution to provide distance and online learning programs, including broadcast lessons. Monsieur le Président, j'ai appris, Madame Navarre-Marie vient de faire ressortir qu'il y a eu une pétition. La pétition voulant dire qu'on ne peut se servir de son appareil, de devices qu'on a, qui nous appartient, pour faire les classes. Et je dois faire ressortir que cela n'a été le cas que pour quelques-uns des enseignants. Il fallait venir avec des mesures. Et nous sommes là en train de dire qu'on ne peut empêcher nos jeunes d'avoir un lien avec leurs études. Et là, les professeurs qui l'ont fait déjà, de leur propre gré, sont des vaillants professeurs qui ont l'intérêt de leurs élèves à cœur. Et nous voulons, nous assurer, par le principe d'équité, que tous les élèves puissent avoir ce moyen, que tous les élèves puissent bénéficier d'online learning. Non, pas seulement en leur donnant des tablettes ou en assurant leur connectivité, mais assurant le lien que l'élève a avec son enseignant. This social relationship between the teacher and the student should be kept in this confinement period. The move of government has been bearing at the center of its action the interests of our students. And we all agree, throughout the world, this is what is being done. A blend of online and broadcast lessons. And I must say that the Education Act as it is provides for that. Because the mode of instruction is decided by the Ministry of Education. What we are doing is we are just putting it on paper for the few people who did not toe the line, who did not have at their heart the interest of their pupils. Mr. Speaker, sir, talking about tablets, we also do know that the confinement is digging the ditch even wider. And it is for that very reason that Cabinet decided to do the extra mile, to work the extra mile. And I must thank the Minister for Social Integration, who has been working very hard. And she has already worked out a project whereby students who have not been given these facilities will be given these facilities. And this goes to the credit of this government. Secondly, we've been talking about some 2,562, if I'm not mistaken. Secondly, Madame Navarre-Marie was talking about the protocol. All this has been worked out. We have had consultations. We've had consultations with teachers. We've had consultations with the rectors. We've been having the directors of zones linking up with the rectors. All this has been worked out and will be given to them in due time. The protocol in case a student is found in school and is not well. All this we have worked out. I'll talk about it later on. Social distancing, physical distancing, all this has been worked out. And we're waiting for certain schools to give us their feedback. Mr. Speaker, sir, I had listened very quietly to my friends when they were talking. I expect the same courtesy. Mr. Speaker, sir, it goes without saying that certain conditions have to be satisfied for dispensing online ODL programs to be a reality, open and distance learning programs. Accordingly, this bill proposes the addition of a new paragraph at section 38, subsection 1, that calls for the provision of relevant data that will facilitate the implementation of online teaching and learning. Mr. Speaker, sir, once the confinement happened, we immediately started to find out means and ways of helping educators and students to remain connected. Now, this register we are talking about of contact details will not only help, and we have put it in there for online learning and distance learning. Alors, Monsieur le Président, il faut qu'on soit sérieux. Nous ne sommes pas là en train d'aller chercher ou entrer dans le privacy des gens. Et il y a toujours d'autres législations, d'autres lois pour ceux qui vont enfreindre la loi. Of course, educators and other staff will have to be supported by personnel from parastatals operating under the aegis of my ministry. And this is why we have the other section about the other officers from the ministry. There are always lessons to be learned from crises, and it is evident that open and distance learning tools can be and are helpful complement to in-person instruction. Online learning and broadcast can indeed be effective, rich and fulfilling experiences for learners, and this is why my ministry has already started the process of mounting capacity building programs for educators on online teaching and the support of Microsoft, with the support of Microsoft and Mauritius Telecoms. Thus, training sessions through webinars have been carried out online for educators of the state and private secondary schools during the current situation of lockdown of schools. The first webinar was attended by more than 1,700 educators online, was held on the 27th April 2020. A second one is scheduled for today, 14th May, at 14 hours. It is also noteworthy, Mr. Speaker, sir, that all recordings of the webinars are placed on the Ministry's website for ease of consultation. The Ministry's website equally contains all guidelines for teachers on the effective use of online teaching platforms. In parallel, several other actions have been initiated on part of building up of professional capacity of educators. This includes the provision by my ministry of logins to all educators and for the conduct of online training in the use of Microsoft Teams as a complement to the Zoom platform. A list of resources, useful links and apps provided on the ministry's portal. A few such apps are links from UNESCO, from the MIE, from the Students' Platform, from the Cambridge Educational Resources, the ePathshala from India, the Khan Academy, collaboration with Dale Carnegie in the organization of training sessions on carrying out online lessons are also being carried out. I need to add, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we are identifying 2 champion educators in all secondary schools, may it be private or public, for them to help educators and students in respect of online teaching. I have no hesitation in stating that the Academy of Teachers will also serve to sustain such capacity building in online teaching and learning of our educators. Of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is another reality we also have to contend with. We are aware that there have been some students who, through no fault of theirs, could not take advantage of these programs. And I've just mentioned that measures are being taken through the Ministry of Social Integration for them to get the tablets. But not only that. Allow me to reassure the House that my ministry intends to remedy this disadvantage by ensuring proper catch-up programs and remediation once schools get back on the rails. I must say one thing, Mr. Speaker, sir. This confinement period is hard, not only on adults, but on the children, and especially on the students. So once they go back to school, we need to ensure that they are in the right mindset, they are in the right state of mind for them to be able to take advantage of the lessons. Mr. Speaker, sir, I won't be long. I'll just go very quickly on a few points that I wanted to raise. Mr. Speaker, sir, one phrase that has been gaining currency these days is school resumption. The Prime Minister has already stated we are resuming schools in a phased manner, and it's starting on August the 3rd this year. Pragmatism dictates that we do not rush headlong into doing so. Prudence should outweigh other considerations. Hurried action can only lead to missteps. So yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, schools will open their doors, but opening up of schools in the current context demands the implementation of new types of protocols altogether. I must say that my ministry has come up in the past with preparedness programs to cope with natural calamities and so on and so forth, but we have also had, but never before, had we witnessed a complete lockdown of activities, a shutdown of most services, except the essential one, due to an invisible pandemic that is frontier impervious. To meet the challenge, we are allowing ourselves to be guided by international experience, but also keeping in view our own context and reality. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know that international planning for school reopening opts for partial reopening. China, Mexico, and other countries have gone through that. We are going to have a phased approach. We in Mauritius have opted primarily for differential reopening, with students of the upper grades, primary and secondary, resuming on the 3rd August, and those of the lower grades at a later stage. Having a reduced school population at any given time, it will be easy to maintain social distancing, and this will contribute to the prevention of resurge or second wave of the pandemic. But obviously, the evolution of the pandemic weighs on the final decision, and we will depend on that. And we will be guided by the Ministry of Health and Wellness in our decisions. Naturally, it is not only the timing, but also satisfying other preconditions that will dictate school reopening. Thus, preventive measures, intervention actions, temperature screening, physical spacing between students and in classes, staggered dropouts and pickup times, as well as staggered breaks, would have to be kept in the loop. Mr. Speaker, sir, many of these actions will certainly be carried out administratively, but will require the legal backup. I need to ensure, Mr. Speaker, sir, I need to reassure the students and tell them that the school calendar is being reviewed. The timetables are being reviewed. We are going to see to it that they complete their year in the best conditions. We are proposing amendments to section 39, subsection 3, pour la reprise des classes de cette année, qui va être complètement différente. Et cela aura un certain impact, sinon un impact certain, sur les règlements spécifiques qui existent déjà dans le système. The prolonged confinement now necessitates amendments in section 38, subsection 1 CG, regarding school admissions. So school admission, student intake, withdrawal and age limits will be taken care of. Again, relevant amendments must be made regarding statutory deadlines for eligibility requirements and awards of scholarships. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know that some students may reach the age of 20 before taking the exams. Amendments have been brought to the legislation to ensure that they are not penalized. These and other such issues have been addressed in the new configuration. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the wake of Covid-19 experience, we must seize the opportunity to review certain aspects of our schooling, especially in the context of a declining demography and in the context of insisted calls for reduced class size. International literature and experience have indeed indicated the benefits accrued to students through smaller class size. Monsieur le Président, Let me conclude by insisting that this academic year will not be the same as previous years. Our schools will no more be the same, not just for this academic year. What has started as a response to a crisis situation presents new opportunities and carries for us new lessons that demonstrate that we can do things differently. Ironically, in the world now riddled with uncertainties, it is a quasi-certitude that in not so distant a future, the existing structure of schools and what goes on within them are called upon to change. Monsieur le Président, quand la structure des écoles change, when the structuring power of time and place dissolves, teachers become more important than the physical environment. And I'd like to say that with the change that is coming, with the online teaching, the role of the teachers become even more important because they will be there as the guides. They will be there helping the students, helping them and also being there to support them. And what has now received an international primature, a unanimous universal official stamp, is that online learning is here to stay and will inevitably get to be embedded in education systems, including our own. However, this in no way presupposes a decline in the role and importance of the teacher. Quite the contrary. What is true is this. What we have been resisting so far, the flipped classroom, the blended learning, face-to-face learning complemented by ODL, personalized learning, and the like, will now occupy center stage in our digital age. Frontal teaching, image of the teacher as a stage on the stage are called upon to take a back step. The teacher will now be the facilitator, the mentor, the one who has developed the readiness for initiating collaborative learning, as well as growing into an adept of alternative modes of educational delivery. In fact, the world over, states and international organizations are now insisting on this new normal, a new way of instructional life. But this is just the beginning, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have a long time been staking in a claim for a mindset change in stakeholders, directly and indirectly concerned with education. Now this mindset change is imposing itself upon us, and there is no going back anymore. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.